Hey Reddit. I know there are thousands of stories like this here. But mine, I think, has one difference. I didn't freak out, didn't punch anyone in the face, and didn't cry into my pillow. Okay. I cried, but just a couple of times. I just became the most patient, calculating bastard you've ever met. And now that the smoke has cleared, I'm sitting in the empty living room of my new apartment, drinking cheap beer, $1.19 a can, because expensive stuff reminds me of her. And trying to figure out if the hell I unleashed was worth the silence that followed. My name is Jake. I'm 32. I'm a structural engineer. If you've ever driven on I-25 around Denver, you might have seen my interchanges. I'm the guy who finishes other people's blueprints. I'm used to order, calculations, and predictability. My life was planned out 5 years in advance. I was wrong about exactly one thing: the woman I chose. Lauren and I met in 2015. She was working as a waitress at a bar where my colleagues and I were celebrating a tough project. She wasn't just pretty. She was the girl who listened. Actually listened. I'd talk about bridge stress, and she'd ask questions about metal fatigue. Now I realize she was just very good at playing a role. But back then, I felt like a teenager. 2 years later, we got married. She was 24, I was 26. We bought a house in the Thornton suburbs. White fence, 2-car garage, lawn I hated mowing every Saturday. Lauren worked at a PR agency called Mitchell & Associates. First as a junior associate, then worked her way up to account manager. She'd come home with stories about toxic clients, deadlines, how she was pulling brand reputations out of the mud. I was proud of her. I thought we were a team. But about a year before the divorce, something broke. She got colder. Not in bed, that was fine, but in her voice. When I came home from work, she wouldn't ask, "How was your day?" but, "Did you just walk across the clean floor with those boots again?" She started going to yoga on Wednesdays and girls' nights on Thursdays. I didn't think much of it. I worked 10 to 11-hour days, closing out projects. I thought she was just bored. Idiot. Then Mark showed up. Mark came to her agency as a freelance graphic designer. He was 27, wore flannel shirts, knit beanies, and a beard that I think he grew specifically to look deeper. Lauren started mentioning him in conversations. Mark told a funny joke. Mark helped me with a presentation. Mark is so sensitive, he paints in oils. I rolled my eyes internally. I thought all those creative guys were posers. But I wasn't jealous. Because I trusted Lauren. My biggest mistake. The first warning bell rang when I saw her phone. She'd gone to take a shower, and on the screen lit up a message from Mark. That night was magical. Can't wait for the next one. My heart sank into my heels. I read it 3 times. But Lauren came out of the shower, saw me looking at the phone, and laughed. She said, "Oh, that's about our corporate party. We played Truth or Dare, and he said the night we worked late on the project was magical for his career." Don't be paranoid, Jake. I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe so badly that I convinced myself I was a jealous idiot. I even apologized. A month later, Mark got kicked out of his apartment. He said an alcoholic neighbor flooded his studio, and he had nowhere to live. Lauren looked at me with her big blue eyes and said, "Honey, could he stay with us for a couple of weeks? He just has no money." Like the last good Samaritan on earth, I agreed. Mark lived with us for 3 weeks. He drank my whiskey, ate my food, and watched my Netflix. And at night, when I fell asleep, he'd go down to the living room, and they'd watch movies, cuddled under one blanket. I slept upstairs. I knew nothing. It all fell apart on Friday, April 14th. A normal spring day. I was supposed to be at a site in Lafayette until 8 at night. But at 3 in the afternoon, the foreman called and said an inspection showed up, and we were shutting down until Monday due to some paperwork error regarding rebar. I was pissed, but then I got happy. I decided to surprise her. I stopped at Whole Foods, bought 2 ribeyes at $30 a pop, asparagus, baby potatoes, and a bottle of Pinot Noir that Lauren loved. I don't drink red myself, I prefer bourbon. I bought tulips, orange ones, her favorite. I pulled up to the house around 5. And I saw Mark's gray Honda Civic in the driveway. He still came by sometimes to get his mail, because he hadn't updated his address. I thought, great, that poor bastard is here to whine again. I parked on the street to avoid blocking him, and went in through the back door, the kitchen. The key turned silently. I put the bags on the counter and was about to call out, "Lauren, I'm home early," when I heard the sound. If you've never heard your wife having sex with another man in your marital bed, then I envy you. That sound changes your brain chemistry. At first, I thought it was the TV. But then I recognized her muffled moan. She always moaned like that when she thought I was asleep. I froze. I stood in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room, listening. They hadn't closed the bedroom door. Idiots. I heard every word. Mark. He's definitely not coming back early? Lauren. Are you kidding? That workaholic is on site. He won't be back until 10 at the earliest. And even then, tired as a dog. He won't even touch me. Relax, Marky. She called him, Marky. She always called me, Jake, formally. Never a nickname. I took out my phone. I turned on the voice recorder. I leaned against the wall and recorded the next 3 minutes. Everything was there. The bed squeaking, her laughter, his heavy breathing. When they finished, Lauren said, as soon as I squeeze the kitchen renovation money out of him, I'm filing for divorce. I'll say he beat me or something. Judges always side with women. Then you and I will buy a little house in Boulder, closer to nature. Mark replied, you're my genius girl. I stopped the recording. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. Inside, there was a void, like someone had muted the sound in a movie theater. I looked at the tulips. I went out the back door as quietly as I come in. Sitting in my car, I dialed Lauren's number. I watched the bedroom windows. A shadow flickered behind the glass. The phone rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She didn't pick up. 10 seconds later, a text arrived. In a meeting, call you later, kisses. She was in bed with her lover, but wrote, in a meeting. I didn't go to my brother's right away. I drove to the parking lot by the old factory where we used to hang out in high school. Sat there for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I thought. I ran through options in my head. Make a scene? Smash Mark's car with a baseball bat? All of that was classic stuff that would either get me arrested or painted as a hysterical husband. I wanted something else. I wanted her to wake up in a month and realize she'd lost everything. And I wanted Mark to curse the day he slept with someone else's wife. I called my brother Brian. Brian is 4 years older, a police sergeant in Westminster. He doesn't approve of emotions. His motto, facts, evidence, law. I got to his place around 7:30 p.m. He opened the door, saw my face, and just said, come in. Beer's in the fridge. Talk. I told him everything, showed him the recording. He listened with a stone face, then turned off the phone and said, do you want a divorce? Or do you want to destroy her? Because I'm not helping you with anything illegal. But if you act within the bounds of the civil code, I'll give you the contacts of the best people. I chose destruction. Within the bounds of the law. Brian gave me 3 things. The address of a private investigator named Frank, an old bastard who used to work with the Irish mob, then retired and now films cheating spouses for $200 an hour. The number of attorney Stephen Becker, specialist in high-asset divorce cases, and advice. Play your role. She can't suspect a thing. I got home at 10. Lauren was sitting on the couch in her pajamas, watching Stranger Things, pretending to be tired. She asked, how was the site? I said, long, got delayed, I'm starving. I kissed her on the forehead, microwaved a frozen pizza, ate it in silence, and went to sleep on the living room couch, saying I didn't want to disturb her with my snoring. I don't snore, but she didn't care. The next day, I began Operation Smile. I became the most attentive husband in the world. I woke up before her and made breakfast. Poached eggs, avocado toast, fresh juice. Lauren raised an eyebrow. What's gotten into you? I said, I realized I've been working too much. I want to make it right. She smiled, but it wasn't a smile of joy. It was a smile of relief. She thought, he suspects and is trying to win me back. How predictable. I bought her flowers for no reason. I brought coffee to bed. I offered to renovate the very kitchen she was trying to bleed me for. I said, let's do the renovation. I'll take out a loan. You deserve a nice kitchen. Lauren's eyes lit up. She was already mentally calculating how much she could transfer to her secret account once I handed the money to the contractor. I didn't take out a loan. I just created the illusion. Meanwhile, I worked with Frank. That old fox was a genius. He installed a simple GPS tracker under the bumper of her car, completely legal, since the car was in my name. He screenshotted her messages because she'd foolishly left iCloud syncing on our shared iPad, which sat on the shelf in the living room. I thought she'd turned it off, but no. Every night, when Lauren fell asleep, I go to the kitchen, opened the iPad, and read her chats with Mark. It hurt, but it was fuel for my revenge. Here are excerpts from their messages that I memorized. Lauren. He made me breakfast again today. Trying so hard. Poor fool doesn't know I'm leaving in a month. I'm just waiting for him to approve the kitchen loan. Mark. You're ruthless. I like it. By the way, I bought that jacket you wanted. $800. You owe me. Lauren. You're my sugar daddy, see you soon. Mark was spending money on her. She was spending mine. They discussed my stupidity as entertainment. At some point, I realized I no longer felt pain. Just cold, methodical rage. Like I was defusing a bomb. My nerves had to be steel. Frank discovered 3 key things that became the foundation of my plan. First, Mark had an inheritance. His grandmother left him 2 small apartments in Lakewood. They brought him about $3,500 a month in passive income, but he hid it from everyone, including Lauren. He presented himself as a poor artist so she would feel like his savior. If Lauren had known he was richer than me, her love might have dimmed. But I didn't reveal that card right away. Second, Lauren had been transferring money to a secret account at Credit Union of Colorado. Over the previous 8 months, she'd moved $42,000 there. Part of it was my salary, part was from the sale of my old car, part was money we'd been saving for a vacation. She'd been moving it in small increments of $500 to $1,000 so I wouldn't notice. I noticed when Frank showed me the statements. That was the first time in 2 weeks I felt like I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just cheating, she was stealing my future. Third, they were planning a trip to Estes Park for the following weekend. Lauren told me it was a PR conference in Chicago. She even showed me a fake agenda she downloaded from some website. Mark had rented a chalet called Pinecone for 3 nights. I knew the address, the dates, and even their cabin number. That's when I struck the first blow. I found Mark's sister on Facebook, Chloe. Chloe is 25, a nurse in Fort Collins. She had old photos with Mark from 5 years ago, but for the last 3 years, she hadn't liked any of his posts. I messaged her. I didn't do it right away. I spent 3 days thinking about the wording. Finally, I wrote, "Hey Chloe. I'm Jake, Lauren's husband. Your brother is sleeping with my wife behind my back. I'm not asking you to pick a side. I just want to know if he has any weak spots. I won't hurt him physically, but I'll make him regret what he did. If you help me, I'll be forever grateful. If not, I understand." Chloe replied 3 hours later. She wrote, "He stole my boyfriend 3 years ago. I hate him. Let's work together." She gave me the chalet address, a photo of their car, and most importantly, she told me Mark was afraid of 2 things. The IRS and his ex-girlfriend Jessica, who has a restraining order against him for stalking. That information was gold. I paid $150 to access public records showing Mark hadn't paid taxes on his rental income for 2 years. I sent an anonymous letter to the IRS. Not an accusation, but a question. Dear IRS, I want to rent an apartment from Mark Thompson, but I was told he doesn't pay taxes. Is that legal? That kind of letter usually triggers an audit. Not fast, but sure. Friday morning, Lauren packed her suitcase. She was in high spirits. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "I'll be back Sunday night. Don't miss me too much." "Oh, did the kitchen loan get approved?" I lied. "I'll sign the papers next week." She smiled and drove off. The moment her car disappeared around the corner, I started moving. I had 48 hours. Hour 1. I drove to Stephen Becker's office. We filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Attached all evidence, the audio recording, screenshots of the messages, the pies report, photos of their car at the chalet. Frank drove there and took pictures from the bushes. Stephen looked at the folder, whistled, and said, "I've been practicing for 25 years. I've never seen this level of preparation from anyone except prosecutors' wives. Are you sure you're an engineer and not a detective?" Hour 3. I drove to the bank. I had power of attorney over the joint account. Lauren had signed it a year ago to buy a car and forgot to revoke it. I froze the joint account. Left only $500 in it for basic operations. The $42,000 Lauren had moved to her secret account I couldn't touch, but I filed a request to freeze that amount as part of the divorce proceedings. The bank blocked the funds until the court decision. Lauren could no longer access them. Hour 5. I went home and packed all her personal belongings. Not in anger, but methodically. Jewelry I had given her, I kept, by law, gifts to a spouse are not marital property unless they were joint investments. The expensive Michael Kors bag she bought with my money, I put in a donation box. Her laptop, which was her personal property, I didn't touch, but I made a copy of the hard drive because it had work files proving she used company time for meetings with Mark. I sent an anonymous tip to her boss. Hour 7. I wrote a letter to her mother, Pamela. Pamela is a good woman, she was always kind to me. I wrote, Pamela, I love you like a mother, but your daughter destroyed our marriage. I have to say goodbye. You might want to know what Lauren says about you behind your back. And I attached a screenshot where Lauren writes to Mark. My mother is a toxic old hag, she ruined my childhood, I don't want her near my future children. Pamela was a widow. She adored Lauren. That screenshot broke her heart. I'm not proud of it. But I wanted Lauren to lose everything, including her family. Hour 10, Saturday morning, I drove to Mark's house. He wasn't there, he was at the chalet with my wife. But I met his elderly neighbor, a veteran named Bill. I introduced myself as Mark's friend and said I wanted to surprise him by washing his car. Bill gave me access to the hose. I didn't wash the car. I opened the gas cap and poured half a liter of water into the tank. Not enough to kill the engine immediately, but enough to make the car stall 50 miles into the mountains, where there's no cell service. A childish move, I admit, but it gave me satisfaction. Hour 12, Saturday afternoon, I changed the locks on the house. Not all of them, just the back door. On the front door, I left the old lock but put the chain on from the inside. When Lauren came back, she'd be able to open the door with her key, but she wouldn't be able to get past the hallway because the chain would be on. A symbolic gesture, but I wanted her to understand. This house is no longer hers. Hour 18, Sunday morning. I knew they'd be back around 4 p.m. I prepared. I bought a new shirt, shaved, tidied myself up. I wanted to look good. Not for her. For myself. I wanted the last time she saw me to be when I was strong. They pulled up at 4:47 p.m. I watched through the window as Mark unloaded a suitcase from the trunk. His Honda was coughing and smoking. The water had done its job. He yelled something to Lauren, she laughed, kissed him goodbye, right in front of my house, on the driveway, in broad daylight. He left in a taxi, leaving his car by the curb. Lauren walked to the door, unlocked it. The chain pulled tight. She tugged once, twice. I stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed. She peeked through the crack and saw me. Her face first showed nothing, then a smile. Jake, what are you doing? Open up, I'm tired from the trip. I didn't answer. Silently, I reached through the crack and handed her an envelope. Inside the envelope were a copy of the divorce petition, a printout of her messages with Mark, annotated with lover, and deception plan, a copy of the statement showing $42,000 in the secret account, and the keys to her car. I'd written on a sticky note, "You'll have to buy a new one. This one's mine." She read it, slowly at first, then faster. Her face went pale. She looked up at me. There was fear in her eyes. Real, animal fear. The way mice look when they realize the cat has stopped playing. You were spying on me?" Her voice trembled. "You're crazy, Jake. That's illegal." "Frank, the private investigator, did everything within the law," I said calmly. "I made the audio recording myself while standing in my own house." "That's legal in Colorado, Lauren." I checked. "Open the door," she screamed, pounding her fist on the frame. "This is my house too." "It was yours," I said. "I filed for an emergency hearing. The judge issued a temporary restraining order excluding you from the residence until the hearing, given that you were transferring joint funds to a personal account. It's called financial infidelity. You're going to lose." She started crying, but those weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage. She screamed, "You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone you beat me. I'll file a police report." I opened the door, but blocked the entrance with my body. I leaned close to her face and said quietly, so only she could hear, "Try it. I have a recording of you telling Mark you were going to falsely accuse me of assault. I'll give it to your lawyer, the DA, and all your friends. You'll go to jail for false reporting, Lauren. I'm not afraid of you." She went silent. She realized I knew everything. Absolutely everything. She turned around, grabbed her suitcase, and walked off toward the main street. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then I closed the door, went down to the basement, and sobbed. For the first time in 3 weeks. I wasn't crying for her. I was crying for the guy who believed in love. He died today. The hearing took place 3 weeks later. Lauren showed up with a lawyer, a young guy in a cheap suit who clearly hadn't expected the sheer volume of evidence. Stephen Becker was in his element. He laid a 200-page folder on the judge's bench. The judge, a woman in her mid-50s named Morrison, looked at me, at Lauren, at the papers. She asked Lauren, "Mrs. Carter, do you deny the fact of adultery?" Lauren tried to say it was an emotional affair with no physical contact. Then Stephen played the audio recording. The courtroom went silent. The judge blushed. Lauren covered her face with her hands. The ruling came down 2 days later. Divorce granted on grounds of defendant's fault, Lauren. Lauren is not entitled to alimony. Marital assets split 60/40 in my favor, but given she removed $42,000 without my consent, she is ordered to repay me $35,000 of that amount. The rest went to her legal fees. The house remains with me, but I am required to pay her 20% of its market value over 5 years. Given she owes me $35,000, she effectively gets nothing and still owes me. Her car, 2018 Honda Civic, she keeps, but I am not responsible for her insurance or maintenance. Lauren left the courtroom with red eyes. Her lawyer wasn't answering her calls, she hadn't paid his retainer. She tried to approach me, but I got in my car and drove away. I didn't want to hear a single word. You think that's the end? No. The most interesting part came after the divorce. Lauren moved in with Mark. He was renting a small studio in Lakewood because one of his apartments was rented out, and he lived in the other. But now that the IRS had started an audit, he froze his accounts to avoid showing income. There was no money for living. Lauren was unemployed. She'd been fired from the PR agency after the anonymous tip, which I sent, was confirmed. She used company time and corporate email to organize personal meetings with Mark. Breach of contract. Fired with cause. They lived in a 350-square-foot studio. I found out from Chloe, we still kept in touch, that they were fighting constantly. Mark blamed Lauren for poorly planning the divorce, and Lauren blamed Mark for being poor and unable to support her like Jake did. Then, a month after the divorce, I got a letter. Not an email, an actual paper letter. Lauren wrote, "Jake, I'm pregnant. 8 weeks along. The baby is Mark's. He left me. Said he's not ready, that it's not his problem. I don't know what to do. I have nowhere to live. My mother won't talk to me because of that letter you sent her. Friends have turned away. You're the only one who was ever truly kind to me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for help. I need $500 for an abortion. Please." I read that letter 5 times. 2 feelings fought inside me, pity and anger. Pity almost won, but then I remembered her laughing about me, planning to leave me broke, calling me a sucker, in a message to her friend. I took a pen and wrote on the back of her letter, "You're not asking for forgiveness, Lauren. You're asking for money. I'm not your ATM. Talk to Mark. It's his child. Or talk to your mother. I wish you luck, but not at my expense." I sent the letter back. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Mark. He was drunk, I could tell from his voice. He was yelling, "You ruined my life, you asshole. Because of you, the IRS is on my tail, and Lauren is suing me for promising to marry her. She wants $20,000. Did you hire her a lawyer?" I hadn't. Lauren had found a lawyer through a women's crisis center referral. She filed a lawsuit against Mark for breach of promise to marry. It's an ancient law, almost never used, but it's still on the books in Colorado. She had screenshots where Mark wrote, "I'm going to marry you as soon as you get divorced, we'll buy a house, get a dog, you'll stay home with the kids." He made written promises. A different judge ruled that Mark had knowingly misled Lauren to obtain sexual relations, and ordered him to pay her $500 a month for 2 years. It's not alimony, but it's close. Lauren owes me $800 a month, by the court order to repay the $35,000. Mark owes Lauren $500 a month. So effectively, Lauren pays me $300 of her own money? No, she declared bankruptcy, but Mark has to pay. He now works 2 jobs. Days at a print shop, nights as an Uber driver. His beautiful life is over. Yesterday, I was sitting in a coffee shop, reading news on my phone. A girl walked up to me. Short blonde hair, freckles, green eyes. She said, "Excuse me, Do you mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full. I nodded. We started talking. Her name is Emma, she's 29, a veterinarian. She loves dogs, hates cats, okay, doesn't hate them, she's just allergic. She laughs loudly and contagiously. She asked why I had such a sad face. I said, it's a long story. She smiled. Everyone has long stories. I'm not in a hurry. We talked for 2 hours. About music, about movies, about the time she rescued a raccoon with a broken leg and it stole her keys. She didn't once ask about my car, my salary, or my house. She asked if I liked hiking. I said I hadn't been hiking in 10 years. She said, that needs fixing. Saturday? I don't know if anything will happen with Emma. I don't know if I'm ready for a new relationship. But I know one thing. I'm finally looking forward, not backward. A Labrador retriever named Mark. Yes, I named him after that bastard, sleeps at my feet. I bought a guitar and I'm learning to play the blues. It sounds awful, but it's fun. Lauren, I've been told, gave birth to a girl. Named her Jane. Lives with her mother, Pamela relented, though their relationship is permanently damaged. Works as a cashier at a supermarket. Mark, I think, is moving to Nevada to escape his debts. I don't feel joy at their suffering. Honestly. At first, yeah, it felt good. But now it's just empty. Like drinking a glass of salt water, it quenches your thirst for a minute, but then you're thirstier than before. The main thing I've learned. Revenge isn't when someone else is in pain. Revenge is when you stop caring. And right now, with a guitar, a dog, and an invitation to go hiking, I think I'm starting to not care. Thanks for listening, Reddit. If anything happens with Emma, I'll post an update. Meanwhile, to everyone going through infidelity, don't stoop to their level. Be colder, smarter, and more patient. And don't forget to change your cloud passwords.